Which ancient culture was way more FKED up than most people know? Feudal China was super into burying people alive. Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor responsible for the unification of China, upon his death, had 70,000 concubines, servants, and workers forcibly interred alongside him. The terracotta army was constructed only because murdering all the soldiers as well wasn't an option. The ancient Assyrians built a vast empire. The empire reached its height during the Neo-Assyrian era, from 911 BC to the fall of its largest city Nineveh in 612 BC. The Assyrian dominion, stretching from Egypt to modern-day Iraq, controlled richly diverse cultures. To quash any uprising in these conquered areas, Assyrian leaders utilized extreme violence. Their horrific campaigns were celebrated in stone reliefs festooning the palace walls. They created tablets containing every single punishment the Assyrian army carried out. They cut off the limbs, gouged out the eyes, and then left those poor victims to roam around. Those poor people serve as a living reminder of the Assyrians' cruelty. The Assyrians were proud of the mass executions. The victim's skin was hung on the city wall. The brutality of the Assyrians was extreme, even for the ancient standards of cruelty. I was recently stunned by the amount of atrocities the Japanese Empire has done. Mutilation of babies, forcing kids to rape their mothers, putting mothers into chambers with boiling grounds to test them if they would put their kids in the ground so that they don't get their feet scorched by stepping on their bodies, carrying baby corpses on bayonets. Not to mention carving a hole in the belly of pregnant women to rip fetuses cold-blooded and then murdering the fetus while the mother is screaming. There are literally no words in any dictionary to describe what they did. The Ptolemaic rulers of Egypt were 10 generations of absolutely ucked, bookended by 2 actually good leaders. Ptolemy and Cleopatra. Their family history would make for a fun trashy soap opera, full of backstabbing, famicide, and a truly appalling amount of incest, as they spent 200 years running Egypt into the ground. Too bad it was all real. And yes, Cleopatra was one of history's few inbreeding success stories. She managed to get all the best traits of her insane family, and none of the bad ones. If you've got a little time, listening to Blue Atosp lose his mind trying to describe the Ptolemaic kingdom is hilarious. I know people wouldn't be surprised by hearing about the Aztecs due to the human sacrifice from war prisoners. But oh boy, it was way worse. If I recall correctly, there was a moment of betrayal that happened from, and I'm doing this from memory. They decided to break peace by killing a princess-like figure by removing her beating heart and when inviting her father to an ominous meeting showing a boy wearing her skin and clothes. Edit. For those in the comments trying to say thesis a distorted view of Mesoamerican painted by the empires that crushed them. Why can't you just accept that yes, their genocide is horrific, but he weren't angels either? It is not hard to see both things as horrible and disgusting. This very thread is proof humans everywhere can be horrible. That just makes them human. The Romans are looked up to this day for their achievements, and you still have Crassus making their soldiers collectively stab their own as punishment for losing to the slaves they would later crucify and torture. You have Japanese monks have a heartbreaking last stand with guns against their most famous conqueror, and you can still read sources about how they had a whole romance with preteen monks and prostitutes, which was seen as perfectly normal at the time. History is full of incredible people, and incredibly horrible people. One time I visited Canada in 2004 and they poured maple syrup on pineapple pizza. Sparta. People in general remember them as just being these badass super soldiers, but don't know how Spartan society was built on draconic slavery and institutional pedophilia. 10 million Africans died under the reign of King Leopold II of Belgium. Absolute horrific brutality. He belongs in the same category as Hitler, Stalin, and Pol Pot. Sorry, not very ancient, but his name doesn't come up in these discussions enough. Who's an idiot that gets treated like a genius? I expected Elon to be on top. He will be disappointed if he sees this thread. This guy the first work with, suck it Jason. Easy one, Dr. Phil. Ron Hubbard, founder of Scientology. I waffle on this myself if I'm honest. Sometimes I think he's a genius who made a cult for profit. Other times I think he's an imbecile who decided to keep riding the wave he accidentally started. Andrew Tate. Trump. Truman Capote called Andy Warhol the only genius with an IQ of 80. Marjorie Diehl Armstrong. Mastermind behind the pizza bombing. Documentaries keep painting her as a master manipulator, but then follow it by saying she can't keep any lie straight for any length of time. The moron tried to rob a bank for the exact amount of money she needed, without having any idea how much they actually kept on hand. Hint. It was only like 3% of the $250,000. The idiot literally turned what would have been an $8,500 robbery into a murder charge. Oprah, she's such a ick. What's better than X? Farting away a stomachache when your friends cancel on plans you didn't want to attend in the first place. Realizing you can sleep in. X2. When the guy behind the counter at the chip shop calls you, big man. Closing the WC door and finally peeing, after sweating through a long, tortuous, almost impossible wait. Passing an exam you thought you failed. Cuddling with someone you deeply care about. Edit. With all the upvotes, hi to my ex. I want to cuddle. The guy with red hair that golfs and likes horses. A good bowel movement. Having a many hours long conversation with someone you really connect with, talking about anything and everything and losing track of time. The taste of water at night. Having someone concede an argument because you changed their mind about something. What went through your head after you lost your virginity? That was it. Don't get me wrong. Love X, but I guess losing your virginity gets so hyped up in movies and TV shows that I thought I'd become like a totally different person afterwards. Instead, I was just me with a new hobby to engage in. I'm going to love this girl forever. Didn't work out, of course. We were 16. But Ito remember her fondly, as a lovely memory of one amazing summer. It felt a bit underwhelming considering her mom walked in on us when she should have been at work. Edit. Also, the hole is lower than you think as 18. Does it hurt this bad every time? Holy hit, I can't believe we just did that. Let's do it again as often as we can manage, and we did. I don't think it went in all the way in God amen that hurts, got better after a few more times. A mix of pleasure because X, happiness because milestone, nervousness because I want her to enjoy it too, and anxiety because I didn't want the condom to break. Boys, be completely honest, what makes a girl go from a 10 out of 10 to a 1/10 instantly? Physical violence, infidelity, heroin, Scientology, needless cruelty. Thinking they own a certain look or idea. I dated this girl who thought everyone was copying her and it drove me up a wall. Stuff like, I just think it's funny how everyone started wearing Nike right after I bought these shoes. No amount of explanation could change her mind on this most absurd example was when she got a week off work due to a family emergency in late November, and then, it's like all of a sudden everyone is planning vacations. Maybe because it's Christmas? Pretty funny in hindsight. I was in love with a girl when I was a teen. I was smitten. She was a 10 out of 10, she had a cat. One day it made her mad and she grabbed the cat and hurled it against the wall. I instantly despised her from there on out. Since she lived close, I also stole said cat a few weeks later. She didn't deserve Muffin, I renamed him afterward. I don't think she ever noticed, I didn't talk to her anymore. No hobbies. I don't want someone who wants me to entertain them. I want someone who has their own life and their own friends and doesn't feel abandoned if I want to spend time on my own or going out with my own friends. Treating restaurant staff badly, dishonesty, manipulative behavior. Edit. Wow, thanks everyone. My first 10K post. Ali did was describe my ex Lolo. My last boyfriend did this. My last boyfriend did that. Well hit, go back to your last boyfriend then. Mine is the same as another earlier comment. Had been seeing a smoking hot woman. Looked like a Robert Palmer girl. Then she kicked my cat. What was funny was Bip the cat then stalked and attacked her by leaping from a chair and latching onto her arm. You didn't UCK with Bip the cat. He was my bro. Edit. We all know the gold is for Bip. Winking face. Thanks everyone. It's always good to remember my little buddy. Constantly complaining about anything and everything. There has to be something you enjoy. That or never taking responsibility for your own faults and always having to blame someone or something else. Being mean to animals. Hygiene. They have to do a TikTok dance in the middle of a busy public area. Lack of empathy for others. If they think they are better than a server or valet, etc., they are retrash. Serious. What organization or institution do you consider to be so thoroughly corrupt that it needs to be destroyed? Ticketmaster, Scientology, the IOC, FIFA, the NCAA, multi-level marketing, MLM, corporations, e.g. Amway, whomever keeps the cost of life-saving medicines like insulin so exorbitantly high. People shouldn't be driven to poverty just for surviving. Nestle, not fully destroyed. Just rebuilt from the ground up. Susan G. Komen Foundation or any pink ribbon organization. Most breakthroughs would have happened years earlier. Edit. I hope this brings awareness to their scam how more than a $1 billion has been scammed out of research to actually find a cure. What is a fantasy of yours that will never be fulfilled? Getting to beat my dad at Tekken mother ucker whopped my SS at it the first time I've ever played a video game, and when I finally get the hit set up for a rematch, the ucker dies on me. I miss you, dad, but you just wimped out because you knew he'd win. Being able to travel through time and space as an incorporeal observer, unable to affect events or interact, only watch. I'd go back and witness historical events, or observe wildlife in places never reached by man without disturbing it. Being a 15th century Byzantine merchant with unimaginable wealth being stored in a large vault of gold and silver underneath a large building in Galata, Constantinople. Having enough money to retire before I'm 40. The amount of people that have retired at 60 plus and died within a year is frightening, and I really don't want to work myself to death and not be able to enjoy my life in retirement. Winning the lottery and never having to work again. To be able to read the winds of winter one day. Seeing the corrupt and powerful held accountable for their crimes. I'd like to die, as an old man, by getting launched into a black hole. I've always been curious about those. But accomplishing a trip like that is just not feasible for me.